The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Hamer, your Program Advisor for SMU's Web and Graphic Design programs. A bit of background about myself. I have been working in higher ed for about 7 years as an instructor and in the admissions and program advisement for professional and graduate education. I've also had professional experience in web and graphic design areas in both corporate and design and freelance. I've spoken with many of you during the past couple of weeks, and I see some familiar names out there. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your evening to join us for this information session. Our non-credit web and graphic design certificates are offered through the Continuing and Professional Education Department along with a variety of other career-enhancing programs. The Web and Graphic Design program consists of a combination of in-class, hands-on, experiential learning in a computer lab environment and online instructor-led classes. All of our instructors are experienced professionals who are currently practicing in their fields, which allows them to bring their real-world experience to the classroom, ensuring that your learning is both informative and engaging. Okay, at this time I just want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. You should see a hand icon above your name. If you can hear us okay and the volume sounds good to you, if you could go ahead and just click that icon just to let us know everything's working properly for you and that you can see the screen. Great. That looks good. Okay. You will also see a question area where you can actually type in any questions you may have as you go along, and John and I will be happy to answer those questions at the end of this session. At this time, I would like to introduce you to your presenter this evening, John Horn. Since entering the field in 1997, John has built more than 50 websites for businesses and nonprofit organizations and has managed the production and design of dozens of print pieces totaling over 1 million individual units. I'd like to turn this over to John, and we hope you enjoy our information session.
Thank you, Michelle. And thanks again to everyone for joining us tonight. Hopefully we can answer all of your questions and give you a lot of valuable information about these two certificate programs. I will start by just reinforcing the fact that we are going to talk about two different certificates tonight. This is not a web and graphic design certificate, but rather an information session talking about our website design certificate and our graphic design certificate at SMU. We tend to talk about them together in the information session because we do find that some people are looking to choose between the two, or maybe someone is coming from a graphic design background and are exploring the idea of maybe expanding their skill set into web design, or maybe is coming from the web design or IT background and is looking to add graphic design to their skills. So we'll be talking about each of the two certificates as we go through in times where there's differences, obviously with curriculum and some industry information. We'll talk about them separately, and in points where they align, we'll talk about them together. But it should all be clear as we move along. Now, for tonight, just take a look. There's really two questions that we're going to try to answer for you this evening. Number one, why should you earn a web or graphic design certificate? What's this going to do for you? What do the industries, the respective industries look like? And what are some career opportunities that having a professional certificate in web or graphic design will open for you? And then secondly, obviously, we're going to talk a bit about the SMU program and give you some information about how our particular certificate is structured, the particular courses that make up the certificate, and the enrollment process. And at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. Now, as we move along through this session, if you have questions that come up, you don't need to hang on to those until the end of the information session. In fact, we would prefer that you use the questions area that you should see in your control panel for GoToWebinar and go ahead and put that question in there. If it's a specific question, Michelle may go ahead and answer it for you if she has the time as we're going through the session tonight. And if not, we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can at the end of this. But rest assured that if we don't have time to get to your question, we will circle back around with you after the information session over the next couple of days and make sure that we get all those questions answered. So feel free to jot your questions, type them right into that questions box as we move along. Now, as Michelle said, I've been working in the web and graphic design industries in one capacity or another since the late 90s, about 97, 98. I spent about 6 years as a freelance consultant helping small businesses and nonprofit organizations develop websites, and just through experience with Photoshop, which then became Illustrator and other tools, began to do a good number of graphic design projects. So I've worked on brochures, flyers, catalogs, logos, you name it, in both of these industries. So as we move forward, I'll be kind of talking a little bit about the two industries and how they've developed and kind of where they are currently in terms of technology and in terms of kind of best practices and such. So I'll begin by just talking a little bit about what you can do with a certificate in either website design or graphic design. And here's where there's actually some similarities in terms of the types of employment and just employment and work possibilities that are out there. Now, a lot of people, when they think about a certificate like this, might think about freelancing. And that's, again, something that I did for several years. Freelancing is great, in my opinion. I had a good time doing it. The things you have to keep in mind about freelancing is that you are your own boss. You get to set your own schedule. You get to find your own clients. And but you also have to think about the fact that your income is not nearly as consistent as it is when you have full-time employment. You may land a gig where you have some consistent revenue coming in for several months, but there's always that sort of end of the project that you watch for as a freelancer, and have to be lining up additional projects that you're taking on as you go along. But certainly there's some beauty in being able to take vacations when you want and work, you know, at 10 o'clock at night rather than at 8 o'clock in the morning if you prefer. And so a lot of people that can kind of feel okay with having some variable income and want the kind of freedom and flexibility that comes from it, freelancing is a really attractive option. And certainly a lot of web designers and a lot of graphic designers do that. But there are many other possibilities for employment in the area. So obviously another option is to go to work in a website design or a graphic design firm. And there are companies that range in size from just a handful of people to thousands of people. There's some very large web and graphic design firms that handle some of the big names and big brands of the world. Nice thing about this, a consistent paycheck. You also get to work on a variety of projects, kind of like you would as a freelancer. Typically, you might be assigned to just one project at a time, but you would very likely roll from one project or one client to another over time working in a firm like this. So it gives you the chance to get some experience with different brands or different websites or different kind of design techniques. And so that's an attractive option for a lot of people. A third option is to go to work for a particular organization as either an in-house webmaster or an in-house designer. Most medium to large-scale organizations have positions, often several positions, that are full-time internal web designers that work on their own website. Obviously, a small business or a nonprofit likely couldn't afford that, but most larger organizations do have these positions. And if you're the kind of person that likes to work on a particular, that likes to develop and grow a particular website or a particular brand and kind of see how it evolves over months or even years, hopefully, this can be a really attractive option. So you don't have that flexibility of kind of working on a lot of different projects, but you do have the satisfaction of seeing your work and the effect that it produces over a much longer period of time working with a particular organization. This is also an attractive career option for people that maybe are coming from a background in which, let's say you had a decade worth of experience in a particular industry. Well, you might be able to translate that into becoming an in-house designer or webmaster in that particular industry, and that would certainly give you a foot up for those kind of job openings, being that you already know the industry and you're really just bringing your new web or graphic design skill sets to bear in an industry that you've already been working in. A fourth option, and we see a lot of people that are earning certificates, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, just to strengthen their resume, or maybe they're looking for a job and they just want to, maybe they're not even planning to become a full-time web or graphic designer, but they know that by adding this skill set to the resume, they become a more valuable asset to an organization or a more likely candidate for employment. Certainly, as a lot of companies have downsized, a lot of people are being asked to do more. You'll see administrative positions updating websites and doing some graphic design. You'll see managers and directors in organizations often getting involved in these things, just as organizations are trying to get the work done that needs to get done. So adding this, I think you'll never regret having the certificate, particularly from SMU, around web or graphic design on your resume. It just makes you a more valuable asset to any organization. And then the last thing is that we see people earning these certificates to apply to their own business. So maybe you're thinking about launching a small business of your own, and rather than outsourcing either some of the website design or graphic design around the collateral you'd be putting together for your own business, you're looking to develop that skill set yourself to either save money or just have more control over it. Now, certainly there are more reasons than these that people might be earning a certificate, and you might fall into one of these categories or maybe something else. But this is just to give you a sense that there's a lot that you can do with a certificate like this. There's a lot of different employment options, and hopefully this has kind of opened your eyes to some things that maybe you hadn't thought about that you'd like to explore. So on that note, let me spend a little more time talking about the website design industry and what a certificate in website design can do for you. Now, I started in the early days of website design as a profession. HTML, which is the language that websites are based on, was created right around 1989, 1990, and really the first widely available browser, which was Mosaic, which became Netscape Navigator, just came out around 1993. So really around 1995 to 1997 was where the first ever professional web designers were kind of starting out. And what we saw was just an explosion of opportunities in this industry that's continuing to today. So as you can see, back in 1995, there were only 1,000 web design companies in the entire United States. And fast forward 10 years, by 2005, we had 30,000. Now, these are not individuals. These are companies in the U.S. Fast forward again, 3 more years, that's up to 50,000. And in 2011, it hit 70,000. So there has been this exponential growth in web design firms and web design employment in the U.S. that's continuing. Certainly it's not continuing at an exponential rate, but it is a strong and growing industry. Lots of new things are happening in the industry. The technologies that we use to develop websites are different today than they were. Well, they're different today than they were 3 years ago, much less in 1997 when I began. It's a completely different ballgame. So if you're the kind of person who likes the challenge of learning new technology and staying on the cutting edge, you can do really well in the web design industry, because those people who aren't developing their skills, or who went through an educational program, say 5 years ago, but haven't updated those skills, well, they're out of date today. So it's a nice advantage for someone coming through a program today and entering the industry, because you're going to know what's being used today, not the way things were being done 2 or 3 years ago. Now, you can see here on this slide the growth rate that we expect for website design. This is coming from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. They expect the web design profession to grow by about 22% over the next 10 years, and that's much faster than most industries, which might see growth in a 10-year period of maybe around 10%. So growth in the industry means opportunities to advance an organization, and also just general employment opportunities. There's some more positions that are opening up in this area than in most professions. Now, on top of that, website design, every couple of years the Wall Street Journal does a career ranking where they take some 200 or so different jobs or careers, and they rate them on a variety of factors. They use somewhere between a half dozen and a dozen different factors that include everything from earning potential to kind of quality of life and the hours you have to put in various jobs. And as you can see, they call it web developer, but a web design, a web professional, ended up rating as number 15 out of these 200 plus jobs. And you can see some of the others that it's rated up there with: petroleum engineers and mathematicians and statisticians and such. So it's a great job, and it's a great industry for a number of reasons. In terms of earning potential, so median salary, and I always like to emphasize what median means in terms of salary. So this doesn't mean the starting salary for someone that might just be coming out of a certificate program, but this does mean sort of the typical salary that you might see someone earning in this role, probably with a few years of experience. Is a little over $50,000 a year. And this is coming from salary.com. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't categorize website design as a separate category in order to publish salary information about it. But salary.com, which a lot of people use for employment information, has sampled thousands of jobs. And this is a sort of a typical salary for an experienced website designer. So very good earning potential, and certainly someone who has even more experience, or maybe has experience in other particular industries that they can leverage in this, could potentially earn even more than this once you've built up your resume, your portfolio, and your experience level. Now, with that, let me take a little bit of time and talk about the graphic design certificate as well. So graphic design obviously is a really general term, frankly, because we see graphic design everywhere, from maybe the soda can that's sitting in front of you, someone designed that, to the postcards or mail that you get. Someone's designed to a cereal box cover, to a billboard. Graphic designers are doing more and more and more nowadays, just because advertising, promotion, and just general design of products and things is just surrounding us. It's everywhere. And so the graphic design industry, while it has been around for far longer than website design, is still kind of a cutting-edge industry. The technologies that we use to create elements today, postcards, brochures, you name it, those technologies are so much more advanced than they were, say, 15 years ago, that it's opened up tremendous opportunities for what graphic designers can do and the ways that companies can leverage graphic designers. So it's a really exciting industry it's an exciting type of job to do. Now, as you can see here, in 2010, a couple years ago, there there were over 250,000 graphic designers working in the U.S. And that statistic doesn't count those people for whom graphic design is just a part of their job, but their job title might be something different. So in reality, the number is probably far larger than that of the number of people that are using graphic design in their jobs. And while it's a large industry and a well-established industry, it's still expected to grow by about 13% over the next 10 years, which is slightly above average for all industries. Now, in terms of what graphic designers do and what you would be producing as a graphic designer, here are some of the examples of things that you might do. So a book cover, for example, graphic designer might do. We're seeing more and more digital billboards, either traditional or digital billboards. This is an annual review that, we don't think about it, but something like this would be put together by a professional graphic designer. You can see how they have, images and text overlaid each other and insets and all of this. This is very well put together by a professional in graphic design. Even websites, you see, in many cases, firms will have a graphic designer do the initial mock-up for a website design, because they know that web designers are, have to be sort of generalists. They have to understand design a bit, but they also have to understand all of the technologies that make those websites work. And so in some cases, I've known graphic designers who get hired just to do the sort of design of the site. It's not a functioning website, but it's a designed template, because graphic designers are so well versed in things like color theory and typography and layout and kind of understanding how we want people's eye to flow across information and that sort of thing. Obviously, graphic designers also involved in creating logos. You can see here some really famous ones. Cereal boxes, I mentioned earlier, so someone had to design Snap, Crackle, and Pop here. And your more traditional elements like brochures. So all of these kinds of things are areas in which graphic designers work. Now, the kinds of things that graphic designers do, obviously they're working on a daily basis with graphic design software. And you can see the logos down the right for Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, and Adobe Acrobat, which are the four sort of industry standard software packages that graphic designers use. And these would be the four software packages that you'd be focused on in the certificate at SMU. But graphic designers are doing things like working with digital photos and touching up digital photos, cropping, slicing, kind of prepping those, working with digital illustration, understanding layout techniques and kind of getting, arranging information on pages or on whatever sort of medium you're designing for. Graphic designers work with color theory and understanding complementary colors and how to use colors to elicit emotions from audiences. And a similar thing with typography, which is, of course, dealing with fonts and, and working with serif and sans serif fonts and finding the right font to convey the right kind of tone in a document. So forth. And then graphic designers, lastly, are working very often with professional print companies or other kinds of sort of delivery channels to understand how to get the work that they've designed into whatever its final product is. And if that's working with a print company to print out 100,000 copies of such and such and mail them out to people, or it may be just getting that information to a company who's going to then put it up onto a digital billboard. But understanding how to do that and working with those kind of different uses that designed elements are being used for today is part of what graphic designers would often be doing. So in terms of salary for graphic designers, you can see here, this is from just a few years ago, May. This information is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which does categorize graphic design as an industry that it tracks and publishes information on. Lists the median salary for graphic designers as between $40,000 and $45,000 a year. So this is 2 or 3 years old now, but still probably pretty current. But you can also see at the bottom of this slide that managers, so advertising, promotions, and marketing manager, once you move up that step into the managerial area, earning potential is well above, is a little into 6 figures. So, so graphic designers, freelancing, all the same sort of opportunities you have with website design. Earning potentials, very good for graphic designers. And again, this is median salary, so it's not necessarily what you should expect to earn coming out of our program, unless you happen to have a lot of other experience that you can leverage in a job you might be looking for. But certainly a realistic salary for someone once they've been doing this for a bit of time. And that's not a bad earning potential for getting to play in Photoshop and work with imagery and that sort of thing all day long. It's a neat area. So with that, we're going to transition into the second part of our session this evening, which is talking about our particular programs here at SMU. And where I'd like to start is by talking about 4 differentiators, 4 things that we feel like set our program apart from most, if not all, of the other programs that are out there. So the first thing that I'll talk about is just SMU. So obviously the SMU brand is extremely strong, not only in the Dallas area, but it's known nationally. Now that comes, sort of having that SMU brand also though means that the quality of this program, this is an academic program that you would be enrolling in. And a lot of people, they hear the term certificate and they think, oh, this is something I pay my money, I get my piece of paper, and I'm certified. Well, this program is generally, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, is an 8 to 10 month program. It is a graded program, so you will have exams that you'll take during the program, and you'll have a project that's graded during the program. Because we know that when SMU certifies someone to go out and enter the workforce, that means something. That means something to employers, and that means something to individuals that might be hiring you as a freelancer. And so we make sure that when you leave this program with your SMU certificate, that the quality of the learning that you have experienced is something that SMU can be proud about. So this is it's a tough program. It's certainly doable. We do not have a high attrition rate or anything like that in the program, but it is a well-designed academic program that's going to prepare you to be a successful professional. And the second thing I'll talk about, it's a good transition into this, are the instructors that teach in our program. Now, the instructors that we select are practicing professionals in the web and graphic design area. So they're not that there's anything wrong with professors, but that these are people who are out there in the real world using the same techniques that they're teaching. And the process that our instructors go through to teach in these programs is that they first submit an application or resume. What we look for is, one, to make sure that they've got the technical background, that they know their stuff, that they've been working in the industry for a while, but also that they have teaching experience. SMU is not a place for instructors to cut their teeth or to find out if they want to teach these things. We look for people that have done this and have taught successfully for several years. So they submit their application resume. If they pass that, they're brought in for an interview. And during that interview, we talk to them about their approach to projects, their background, their teaching philosophy, all of those things. And if we like what we hear there, then they move on and they deliver for us a teaching demonstration. So for our staff, they have to deliver a segment of a course so that we can actually see and hear how they engage in a classroom to make sure that they can teach in a way that's not only communicating information, but doing it in a lively and engaging fashion. And then once someone becomes an instructor in our program, They're evaluated after every class, so students have a chance to give us feedback on those instructors, which we can pass along and coach to help those instructors become better and better, or in a worst case scenario, realize that that instructor is just not what we're looking for, and we have lots of other instructors that we can turn to. But we're very proud of the quality of the instructors that are teaching in our program. So once again, the selection criteria that we use, we look for three things. We look for technical expertise. They've got to know their stuff. But we also look for real-world experience, that they're out there applying that technical expertise and doing work so that they can bring that experience into the classroom with them and share that with you. And then thirdly, we look for their classroom demeanor. We want instructors. Some of these are fairly technical topics that they're teaching, so we want to make sure that those instructors can really explain some of the theory, say, behind color theory, or some of the complex technologies that might be used to in cascading style sheets to format a website. So we make sure that they have the communication skills and just the personality so that you enjoy coming to class and that you really feel like this is a fun and engaging learning experience. Here's just two examples of instructors in the program. So Kim Bauer, as you can see, has worked as a web professional for 12 years plus. This is about a year old, so probably 13, 14 years at this point. And some of the brands that she's worked with, Nationwide, American Airlines, Discover, I mean, these top brands that she's had the opportunity to work with. So she brings that experience into the classroom with her. Meanwhile, AJ Woods has been not just once, but on 2 separate years was rated as the #1 Adobe certified instructor worldwide. He lives here in Dallas, and he's the chapter leader, as you can see, for the Acrobat and the InDesign user groups, and he's been teaching with us now for, gosh, probably a couple of years, not more. And we're just so proud of not only these two instructors, but our whole cadre of instructors and the backgrounds and experience that they bring to the classroom. The third thing that I'll talk about that's a differentiator for this program, as we were sitting down to design this program, what we realized is that most web design and most graphic design programs focus on 2 areas. They focus on the creative aspects, which would be things like color theory and kind of layout and how to kind of communicate ideas through words and imagery and such, and they focus on the technical aspects. So technical aspects would be, how do I use the Illustrator software? How do I use Adobe InDesign? How do I convert something that I've designed into an Adobe Acrobat PDF that I can take to a print shop to have copied 100,000 times? Or on the web design side, this would be, okay, how do I create a hosting plan to host my website and put it out there? How do I use HTML and cascading style sheet code to create elements on a web page? So these are the 2 areas that most programs focus on. And in terms of just sort of building and creating good-looking websites or good-looking graphic design pieces, that's almost sufficient. However, to be a successful professional in either of these 2 industries, there's more to it than that. So as we design this curriculum, there's a couple other areas that we focus on. One of them is project and client management. So whether you're working in-house for an organization, in which case your client is your employer, or doing freelance or working for a firm in web or graphic design, you are going to be tasked with delivering projects on certain deadlines with certain deliverables. And so we want to make sure that when you come out of this program, you've got at least, some of this stuff only comes with experience, but we want to make sure that you have at least a good working knowledge of how to create a project plan, how to manage kind of client expectations and deliver what you've promised on schedule and on budget, and that you just have a sense of how to kind of manage your client that you're working with. And again, that client could be your boss if they're the ones that that you're delivering the end results for. But those are included in the program. And then lastly, both of these industries are changing. Obviously, the web design industry is changing at a rapid pace. But the graphic design industry also has new techniques and new sort of standard best practices that are evolving every few years. And so we ask our instructors to bring their experience around where the industries are going into the classroom, so that as you come out of our program, you know, well, hey, this is how this stuff is being done, but here's some of these new techniques that are probably going to become standards over the next few years, and I already have a sense of them, so maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the curve in my learning, and I can start to apply those and get some more experience around things that are not necessarily the standard yet, but are on their way to become that. And so we feel like these 4 areas really bring this all together and prepare our students for success. Now, the last thing that I'll talk about, and this is something we're pretty proud about, is that part of this certificate program is that you get to complete a capstone project. And you can see here, these are some of the capstone projects by former students, and these are all websites. So at the end of the certificate, the final course, essentially, that you take is basically an instructor-guided practical where you are creating your own portfolio piece. Now, in the web design area, it would be what you just saw here. You would be creating your own website. You get to choose your own topic. It could be for your own maybe freelance business. It could be a small nonprofit that you work with or have some affiliation with. It could be a neighborhood association. It could be your own employer. Maybe you're employed by a company that's paying your way through the certificate. So this can be a real or fictional company or organization, but you will be creating a small-scale website, start to finish, over a 10-week period in this capstone. And the idea of this is to give you kind of some real-world experience so that you see what a project feels like. You're being asked to deliver certain deliverables or produce certain deliverables on a schedule through the capstone, and you find out where your strengths and where your challenges are in actually applying that knowledge that you've gained through your coursework. So we'll talk a little bit more about the courses that you'll go through in just a minute, but this is your chance this is your applied sort of practical where you get to make sure that all of that theory and technology and everything else that has come in your learning through your certificate can actually result in a professional project. And on the graphic design side, same idea. You can see here this is a billboard, a postcard. Here's a full sort of graphic design set of elements, another postcard, a billboard, business card, envelope. So in the graphic design side, you will be producing a visual identity and a set of visual identity elements, so logos and business cards and potentially letterhead or envelopes or maybe a postcard or maybe a billboard, as you saw some things there. You get to kind of, to some degree, you get some flexibility in the project that you choose. Again, it can be a real or fictional project. But over that 10-week process, you're going to work with that instructor to produce professional portfolio pieces, which you can then show to potential employers or potential clients if you're freelancing to hopefully set you up well for employment after the program. So again, the 4 things that we believe really set this program apart: the quality, the SMU quality of the curriculum, the instructors of which we're so proud, the approach that we take, the holistic approach that goes beyond just the creative and the technical, and then lastly, the capstone project that you do at the conclusion. Now, on that, I'm going to go into the last bit of of our session tonight and talk with you about some of the specifics of each of the 2 certificates. Now, I'll mention both of these certificates are blended learning programs. The way that they are designed is that the more theoretical work that you do, so the introductory course, which I'll talk about in a second, as well as the capstone, which is very applied work, are online learning courses. All of the technology-based learning, so in the web design area, for example, show here, as you're learning things like HTML and cascading style sheets and Dreamweaver and Photoshop, you're in a computer or you're in a classroom with the instructor there. So some of this is online, some of it's in class, and this is the way, as you may know, a lot of modern adult learning is going, because we're all busy and have lots of things going on in our schedule. So, you know, those things that we feel like can be delivered most effectively online are delivered online. Those things where we feel like need a little bit more of an in-person kind of hands-on approach are delivered in the classroom. So in the web design area, for example here, our starting and running a successful website is kind of like website design 101. This course covers everything from how do I register a domain name, like a www dot whatever, to so what does a web design project flow look like? Like what are the stages of a web design project? To how do I get a website registered on a search engine once I've got it all built. So it's kind of all of the pieces and how they all fit together in these projects. And then the other three courses that make up the certificate are the applied courses of HTML and CSS, which are the languages that sort of make up, that put things on web pages. These are sort of the core languages of website design. Dreamweaver, Adobe Dreamweaver is the industry standard software for website design. And then web graphics using Adobe Photoshop to produce all of the buttons and images and navigational elements, all kinds of things that you see visually on websites. So these are the four courses that make up the web design certificate. There's an exam that corresponds to each of those courses that you would take after completing the course. And then at the end, as I mentioned, there's the 10-week certificate capstone, where you essentially have one of our instructors mentoring you through the process of creating your own website. The graphic design certificate is similar. There are 5 courses in graphic design. There's an introduction to graphic design, which is offered in an online format. And then there are 4 technology courses. There's print graphics with Photoshop. So how do I use Photoshop to work with digital images and prep those? There's Adobe Illustrator, which you would use to create things like logos or any sort of line art, or maybe to put together a postcard or a business card. You might do that on Adobe Illustrator. Adobe InDesign, which is used to produce multi-page documents. So maybe a trifold brochure that's front and back, or a catalog, or anything like that would be typically built in Adobe InDesign. And then lastly, Adobe Acrobat, which is, we're all probably familiar, is used to produce PDF documents and to prep a lot of the finished product from Adobe InDesign or Illustrator, to prep that to go out to either a printing agency or some other kind of advertising channel. So a couple of these courses are a little bit shorter than the web design, so this ends up, the total number of hours for the 2 certificates is virtually identical between the 2. But there are 5 exams here, 1 corresponding to each of those courses, and then the certificate capstone at the end, just like with the web design, where you have an instructor who is mentoring you through the 10-week process of creating your own visual identity for some organization. Now, during this project, you have access as an enrolled student to SMUlearn.com, which is our learning portal for these 2 certificates, as well as the paralegal certificate. here at SMU. So you'll have a login to this system. This is where you would go to take your examinations for each of the courses. This is where you would log into for your capstone project, and has all of the sort of resources that you would need to access for that are all through this portal. And this is just included for all enrolled students. Now, I want to talk just a minute about a curriculum change that's happening this fall, and I'm going to talk about kind of both of our formats. If you've been on the website looking at the current delivery format for this program, we have up until now, and will for the next few weeks, offer an open enrollment kind of program model, which basically means you sign up and take the courses in essentially any order. You'd be taking your capstone obviously at the end, but there's no prerequisites between the courses. You can take them at your own schedule, and we have courses that are scheduled evening, daytime, Saturday, kind of all sorts of different days and times to accommodate different schedules. This is the way the program's been offered for the past couple of years since it launched, and it's been very popular. There's over 90 hours of hands-on education in this, and most students, obviously students, you can sign up for classes kind of at your leisure or on your schedule. Most students, we find, complete the certificate in around 8 to 10 months. It's possible to do it a little bit faster than that. Most people take 8 to 10 months to finish. And of course, as an enrolled student, you'd get access to the academic versions of the Adobe Creative Suite. So this format, we are actually shifting this fall to a format that I'll talk about in just a moment. But until June 1st, you can still enroll in this open enrollment format. So if the idea of enrolling in courses at your leisure, and maybe taking some of your courses on Saturdays and some on evenings, is something that's attractive to you, you have until June 1st under this sort of program format to enroll. And Michelle can talk to you more individually about that if you have questions. But let me talk about what's happening this fall. So starting this fall, we are shifting to a cohort model. And what that means is that we will have a group of students. Classes are limited to 15 students, I believe 15 to 16 students per cohort, that you would be essentially going through the program, taking courses in the same order with the same set of students, kind of all working through it together. We're expanding the curriculum just a little bit. It's going from somewhere between 90, 95 hours to just over 100 hours of education. The certificate is going to be a 9-month certificate, so about the same amount of time to complete as what most people took in the open enrollment format. This format is a bring your own laptop format. So what that means is you get to have your own computer, your own software that you work on, that you bring to class when you have your in-class sessions or that you're working on at home, so that the software environment or the computer environment that you're working in doesn't change. Whereas in the open enrollment model, which isn't that big of a deal, but you might be working on your own computer at home, but then would be coming into a computer classroom and taking classes on one of SMU's computers and having to transition between the two. So under this new model, you would bring your own laptop. We, again, offer access. We have a partnership with a software provider who provides access to students with an educational discount, which essentially means that the Adobe Creative Suite goes from costing somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 for kind of the standard what you would need to, I believe, gosh, I think it's under $400. It's a dramatic discount that as a student in the program would receive on that software. So we can help you get your software, but you come. These will be evening classes, at least for the fall cohort, and you're going to be meeting 1 to 2 times per week. And we'll have all of the schedule published up on the website in the next couple of weeks. but the introductory class will be meeting once a week for each of the 2 certificates. While you're doing your software classes, you'd be meeting twice a week, and then the capstone is again back to about weekly meetings. So evening format, bring your own laptop. The curriculum has expanded just a little bit, and I'll just mention the area that the curriculum is expanding is in those introductory courses, the Starting and Running a Successful Website and the Introduction to Graphic Design. Essentially, we're adding about a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of additional content into those courses to give our students a little bit more time with the theory and some of the project management and kind of philosophy around color theory and graphic design, typography, that sort of thing. And on the web design side, all of the mechanics of things that you need to know, like how to, like what a project flow looks like, and even things like client management and putting together what does a contract look like between a web designer and a client, that sort of thing. Now, the entrance requirements for the certificates, what we look for is either that you have a 4-year undergraduate degree or that you have at least 4 years of professional work experience. And Michelle can talk to you in more detail about your particular situation if you have questions about this, but really these requirements are there just to make sure that when you emerge from this program, that you're ready to enter the job market and that you will be a competitive candidate in the job market. Now, completion requirements. So to earn your certificate, what we look for is that you're able to score at least a 75% or better on each of the exams that correspond to the courses in the program, and that you score at least a 70% or better on the capstone. And the way the capstone is graded is that you do have homework that you're turning in as you work through the capstone, and that makes up a portion of your grade. And then the rest of the grade in the capstone project comes from our panel that reviews your final project and actually rates it on a variety of different aspects that might be, the aesthetics of it and the, on the website design side, the functionality, the navigation, so forth. People often ask, well, what happens if I don't? Let's say I don't score 75% or better on the exam or don't hit the 70% on the capstone. You have the opportunity to retake each of the exams a second time, and then if you aren't able to complete it that second time, then we would work with you on an individual basis to figure that out and make sure that you have the skills. And really what we're looking for here is to just make sure that when you get out there in the job market that, one, you reflect the professionalism that we'd want from SMU, but two, that you're prepared to do professional quality work. That's our goal. Now, as a graduate of the program, you not only get all the hands-on and experience and real-world skills that come from both the classroom learning and the capstone, you also get your SMU certificate. You can see some of our former graduates here. You get a portfolio piece that comes out of that capstone, and you have that network of peers, the people that you've gone through the program with, that you can fall back on and that you can talk with and work with as you move forward in your professional life. Now, in terms of the program value, so the tuition for each of the 2 certificates, the open enrollment tuition is $3,690 right now. There is somewhat of a discount if you pay up front for that. And the cohort certificate, which again we're moving to after June 1st, is $3,850. It's a small increase that reflects the additional time that the cohort certificate is going to spend, those additional hours in those introductory classes. And that tuition includes everything that you see here. All of your textbooks and course materials are included, so there are no separate book fees. When you are in class to the open enrollment program, we provide the computer and software. Obviously, the cohort is a bring-your-own-laptop model, but you get this discounted academic pricing for that creative suite that is worth quite a bit. And as I said, it's about a $1,000 discount for being a student. You get access to the online testing center, you get all of the coaching and mentoring through the Capstone project, and you get your certificate upon graduation. So all of the costs are included in the prices that I mentioned. And on that, I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle to talk with you for just a minute about the financial options that we have.
Thank you, John. Now, the majority of financial aid that's out there is based on the FAFSA and other types of grants and funding that are typically for credit-based programs and degree programs. Because the web and graphic design certificates are non-credit programs, these types of traditional forms of student loans and financial aid are not available to use for this program. One of the things that we do have in place at SMU is a relationship with Sallie Mae, and we offer a Sallie Mae Smart Options student loan through the SMU Continuing and Professional Education department, and you can find that information right on the website. There's a link there that when you click on it, it brings you right into the template that Sallie Mae has created for SMU students, and you'll have direct access with the login information that you need for working with an SMU program. Keep in mind, though, that these are smart option loans. They're private loans that have interest rates, and they are based on approval of your personal credit score. So for those of you who may have a low credit score or no credit, we do recommend that you consider thinking about a co-borrower. When you apply and they request a co-borrower, you will have to submit that individual's information as well. So it's something to think about before you actually do apply for the loan, and you're ready to have that information to apply. One of the other things that we encourage is that you reach out to your own financial institutions or credit unions. Many of us have really good relationships with our credit unions or banking institutions, and lots of times they'll be more apt to work with an individual to get them into a personal loan to continue their education. So that's also an option if you choose not to go through the Sallie Mae process. And I will be happy to work with everyone to help you through the Sallie Mae process. Once you get into our website, we can walk you through how to log on and give you some insight into how that works.
Excellent. And so let's see, this is a good opportunity for us to transition. We're almost out of time. We'll transition into our final slide here and address a few of the questions that people have posted. And there's still time. If you have a question that maybe we haven't answered up until now, you're still welcome to type that into the question area. Let me tackle just a few of these we have time for. Let's see, Patricia asks about the 10-week capstone. The capstone does meet every other week, so there's only there's actually 5 sort of live meetings of students. It is an online program, but there'd be 5 times when you would all come together in class during that program. You'll be doing homework on a weekly basis and submitting that to the instructor and then getting feedback on that homework. So that's probably why if you see on the website that there's only 5 meeting sessions, that's why it is 10 weeks long, but there's 5 meetings. Michael asked, this is a great question. If you start in the open enrollment program, what happens if you start now in the open enrollment program? We will be offering those open enrollment format courses for at least the next 9 months. So anyone that signs up for the open enrollment format before June 1st we guarantee to have classes available to allow you to finish the certificate in that online format. So the online is not going away as of June 1st. We're just not accepting additional students into it. So that's going to get phased out over the next year or two, once we get everyone through that. Will the introductory and capstone courses in the cohort format still be online? Yes, they will. So same sort of model of you take your introductory course online, you take sort of the more technology-based courses at the SMU campus and classrooms, and then you would complete your capstone in an online format. And then, here's a great question. So Samantha Horn, good last name, Adobe just announced that they're moving to a subscription-only model that will that allow us to have the most up-to-date software version? And the answer to that is yes. We can. We get a similar type discount with the subscription model for the Adobe products as with the full purchase price. For those of you that don't know, Adobe offers their products either pay a one-time fee and own that software, or you can essentially license it on a month-to-month basis. You can do either of those in the program. They did announce recently that they are likely moving to a subscription-only model down the road, which actually makes the products more affordable for a lot of people. But there's also been a lot of pushback from the community about that decision. So we'll see if they follow through with that. But whether they do or they don't, we'll be able to make sure that students get access to those products for the program. And so I think there's a few other questions here, but that's about all that we have time for because we are 3 minutes over. So let me just wrap up by saying thank you to everyone for coming tonight. I hope that we answered most of your questions. There are a few that we did not have time to get to, and we will certainly follow up with you guys over the next few days. You can see on the slide that's up here the phone number, and there's Michelle's email address for you, as well as the website addresses for each of the two programs. I'll remind you that the details for the fall cohort model programs, we are working diligently to get all of that stuff ready, and it's going to be up on the website in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, Michelle can talk with you about that if you have questions about it, and we'll certainly let you guys know once the specific schedule for the fall cohort is published and additional details. But thank you guys so much for attending tonight. Michelle, do you want to close out or say anything else?
Sure. Just real quick, I just want to let everyone know that I will be reaching out to you personally via phone and email just to make sure all your questions are answered, and you will receive a copy of this information session as a recording for your review, as well as an email with other details about some of the questions that you've asked and more information about moving into our new model and how you can enroll in the current model over the course of the next couple days. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope that you received all the information that you needed to make a decision to enroll.
Fantastic. You guys have a great night, and we hope to see you in class. Thanks, everybody.